Douglas Sirk was one of the most patient men in movie history. He waited literally decades to fulfill himself as a director. And even though those prime years were short-lived, he made the most of them. Sirk was born in Hamburg to Danish parents at the turn of the last century, starting his career as an actor in Germany during the 20s under the name Hans Sierck. His last name is actually spelled S-I-E-R-C-K. He finally got offers to direct at Berlin's famed UFA studio, but that was after it had been taken over by the Nazis. Sirk made 9 pictures there, both features and shorts, before deciding that the future was elsewhere. First France, then a peripatetic trek through South Africa, Switzerland, Holland, and finally the United States. He ended up at Warner Brothers in 1939, where he didn't really do much of anything, until, in collaboration with other German émigrés, he directed an anti-Nazi picture released by MGM in 1943 called Hitler's Madman, which led to a series of mostly independent productions, like today's offering, and Sleep, My Love, another semi-noir from 1948 that was an entertaining riff on Gaslight. He did a terrific job with Sam Fuller's original script, Shockproof, in 1949, although the film was maimed by studio executives who forced a happy ending on what should have been a fatal romance a la Gun Crazy. That's when Sirk returned to Germany, thinking his Hollywood career was finished. But Universal hailed him back to direct a bunch of studio fodder in the early 50s, films that showed only flashes of Sirk's signature style, which would fully emerge with Magnificent Obsession in 1954, the first of several classic melodramas he'd make with the studio's biggest star, Rock Hudson. Now, it was these bold and unapologetic melodramas, All That Heaven Allows, Written on the Wind, The Tarnished Angels, and Imitation of Life, that secured the director's place in cinema history. But at the end of 1959, the 62-year-old director confronted a slew of health problems that made him move back to Germany, and Sirk never made another studio film. Now, things didn't go that well for the original producers of Lured. James Nasser made only 2 more films, An Innocent Affair and A Kiss for Corliss, before he ran into money trouble in 1952. Security First National Bank got a California Superior Court to foreclose on Nasser for the $100,000 he'd borrowed to produce Lured. The bank ended up getting the movie instead of the money, which is one way indie films like Lured end up slipping into a netherworld where no one's quite sure who owns the rights. Fortunately, this one was sorted out eventually. Nasser's erstwhile partner, Henry Kessler, ended up working on 4 films with Humphrey Bogart as a producer at Santana Pictures. As a sly tribute to his colleague, Bogart named a character after him, the other murder suspect in the 1950 classic In a Lonely Place, on which Kessler was the associate producer. But perhaps the most interesting contributor to today's film was scriptwriter Leo Roston. He had a unique entree to Hollywood. In 1940, the Phi Beta Kappa student from the University of Chicago, fresh off his PhD, was appointed Chief of the Motion Picture Section in the Division of Information for the National Defense Commission. He spent 2 years studying the inner workings of Hollywood under a research grant from the Carnegie Corporation and the Rockefeller Foundation. In short, he acted as a liaison between Hollywood and the Defense Department, helping coordinate cooperation during the war. Roston's research became a book, Hollywood, the Movie Colony, the Movie Makers, the first unbiased insider's analysis of the movie-making business. It offers an amazingly detailed look at the industry circa 1940. During his research, Dr. Roston was in regular contact with the PCA office, which might explain why his draft of Lured was passed with few exceptions. Although he'd come to Hollywood as an impartial observer, Roston ended up with some impressive scriptwriting credits, All Through the Night and Captain Newman, M.D., plus a few good noirs. The Dark Corner, Sirk's Sleep, My Love, The Velvet Touch, and Where Danger Lives. He'd become most well known, however, for his humorous stories about Hyman Kaplan, a Jewish immigrant with a penchant for malaprops. The success of those stories led to Roston writing The Joys of Yiddish, an indispensable text which details how words such as chutzpah, kibbutz, and schlemiel made their way into everyday American usage. Now, next week on Noir Alley, we feature a film based on a novel by another guy who had a way with words, Raymond Chandler. Make a date with Dick Powell and Claire Trevor and me for our screening of the first film to feature legendary private eye Philip Marlowe, 1944's Murder, My Sweet. While we await Marlowe's arrival, check in on the Noir Alley Facebook page and Twitter feed and let us know what you thought of Lured, Lucy's Waltz into Darkness. Until next time, remember, if you want to be cool, stay in the shadows.